Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's special presentation of our Stage Stories program at the Wallis Annenberg Center for the Performing Arts in Beverly Hills, California. My name is Mark Slavkin, and I'm proud to serve as Director of Education at the Wallis, as we lovingly call our organization. We were given the great privilege to reimagine a historic post office building in Beverly Hills and reimagine it as a center for the performing arts. We have two beautiful theaters and a dedicated education wing with 3 classrooms and a beautiful outdoor courtyard. And in addition to our work presenting dance and theater and music and film in our beautiful theaters, a core part of our mission is engaging people of all ages as artists and creators. We believe that all of us have enormous capacity and potential to grow in and through the arts. And in fact, grow at the Wallis is what we call the umbrella for our education and outreach programs. In the pre-pandemic world, we decided to expand our programming for older adults, recognizing that many people are available during the daytime to participate in arts activities, and our classrooms could be a great resource to support their growth and learning. And in designing this particular program, I think we first thought of it as a way to draw individuals to come and hone their creative writing skills and learn how to present in a theatrical way their personal stories. But what we've learned in the pandemic is that the secret sauce of this program, it's not just the learning of the individuals, but creating a sense of community and connection. And I really want to salute my colleague, Debra, who you'll meet in just a minute, for envisioning the program and doing such a masterful job teaching it. But again, in addition to imparting skills and knowledge and maybe new confidence, she's created a safe space at this critical time for people to feel truly part of a community, to be connected to people who, even though they've never met in person, can forge really meaningful bonds and have this great opportunity to share with each other and learn and support each other. So I feel very grateful at the Wallis that we're able to create these kinds of opportunities for older adults, as well as people of all ages. And again, thank my colleague, Debra Pasquerette, for really leading with her heart and her skills as a theater artist, an excellent instructor, but just doing a labor of love to create these amazing opportunities for the participants. And finally, I want to thank the people who decided to sign up, or in some cases, their family members may have signed them up as maybe a gift. But I want to thank you for your courage to share today and for being so open and giving with your fellow participants in this class. So with that, it's my great pleasure to turn it over to our Manager of Community Engagement and the leader of this program, Debra Pasquerette.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. As Mark mentioned, my name is Debra Pasquerette, and I am the instructor and creator of Stage Stories, which is the program you're going to see this morning. I have an incredible job that I am so grateful for, and so grateful to the Wallis for giving me the opportunity to expand my ideas in bringing in a new class and working with people, older adults. And little did we know when we started, not only in our theater, but in this last year, many people in classes through our online Zoom classes. So this morning, you're going to meet 7 storytellers who didn't know each other when they met, and in the last 10 weeks have really forged some amazing relationships with each other, and I think also with themselves, in terms of looking inside and writing about things they may not have thought about in a long time. I mean, there are prompts that go, part of the writing comes from prompts, part of the writing comes from discussions we have. Anything from the first time I was afraid to What happens when you come across somebody that you haven't thought about or seen in many, many years? What is that like? And you'll hear some stories, and those are just a few of them, but you'll hear stories that sort of cover the gamut. And they have no direction except for to take those stories and take those ideas and make them their own. And so what you'll hear this morning is not edited by me or structured by me. It comes directly from their hearts and from their history. And so this is our Tuesday morning class, and I'm so excited to invite our first storyteller, Paula, to share. Oh, before Paula comes on, so sorry. At the end, we're going to have a quick question and answer session with the storytellers. So if you have a question that comes up or a comment, please put it in the question and answer section or the chat below, and I'll be able to see that and moderate that at the end. So sorry. So sorry for the false start, Paula. This time, I'd like to introduce you to Paula.
Thank you, Debra. We all want to thank you for this amazing opportunity. My name is Paula Firestein, and my story is The Reunion. The room was noisy and festive as fresh guests pushed through the front door 3 abreast, anxious to join the party. I arrived early to quickly claim the coveted corner of the cushiony couch where I could be an anonymous observer. Our host was generously pouring Bacardi cocktails as the new arrivals merged with their expanding circles of friends. I could just make out some of the conversations as Spanish and English jockeyed for attention in what was a hybrid language, affectionately known as Spanglish. I was searching for a familiar face as a wave of claustrophobia washed over me. I looked around for an escape route and found myself staring at belts and purses. I rose from my seated position and watched as my safe space was immediately occupied, like sand filling in a sudden depression at the beach. I swiftly dodged past pointy elbows and gesturing hands to the sliding doors that opened to the balcony and refuge from the party makers. I was gratefully alone. Almost. He spoke first. That's the Big Dipper. You're French. I had not intended to say that out loud. He laughed. Yes, he was in Puerto Rico for a 3-year work assignment. He didn't know anyone in San Juan yet, and neither did I. We were both new to the island, and thought that party was a good place to meet people. We talked a while before sneaking out to a quiet, nearby restaurant for a proper conversation. I can't say for sure when I fell for him, but I did. From then on, we did everything together. We took a quick trip to the mainland so I could introduce him to my America. We toured the Grand Canyon, passed through historic towns. We were entertained by Wild West mock shootouts and dining at roadside cafes. We stopped at the old-time photography booth and left the American frontier with a photograph of us wearing someone else's saloon-style vintage clothing. We lunched at the Twin Towers and caught all that jazz on Broadway. Life was heady, romantic, erotic, and exotic. Then, without warning, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, returning home from a business trip that ended in a carjacking at the San Juan Airport parking lot. Suddenly, I found myself waiting outside an emergency room, straining to hear the whispered consultations. No feeling below his waist, just missed the spine. Swelling needs to go down. Long recovery. He could walk again, with difficulty. When I'm allowed to see him, I can just make out his whispered request, please help me. I want to go home to Paris. Progress is slow, over many months, but steady. It's finally time. Together we fly to Miami. Once there, I help him to the next plane, get his luggage and seatbelt secured. His next flight is Miami to Paris. This time, he will fly alone. We planned for me to join him, but neither of us know when that will be. 9 months later, I'm waiting for him at the arrival lounge of the Charles de Gaulle International Airport. The lounge is nearly empty as my fellow travelers meet, greet, and depart the area before I catch sight of a solitary silhouette, tall, thin, hands in his pockets, with a visible limp. The next 6 weeks are a whirlwind of activity: museums, picnics, road trips to Saint Michel, family reunions in Nice, arguments, running away, coming back, more arguments, and ultimately breaking up. He began that conversation with, "There is someone out there that's better for..." I was ready to interrupt him with a firm no when he sighed, "For me." Did he just say there is someone out there better for him? Wait, that isn't how the saying goes. I stare at him, stunned. 31 years later, my husband and I are in Paris. "Would you mind if I check the internet for my old beau?" I asked. "Go ahead," he replied. It took all of 10 minutes. Number found, message left. 2 days passed before that familiar voice was on the line, suggesting dinner for 4. I was quite sure that I would recognize him as the maitre d' led us to a table where 2 of the most elegant, handsome men sat waiting. One was Julien, and the other was his partner, Andre. He was right. There was someone out there that was better for him. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Victoria.
Thank you, Paula. Great story. Hi, everyone. I am Victoria Kemsley, and this is my story. "Just let go, Michael," we all yelled to my 8-year-old nephew. "It'll be okay." He was clinging to the rocks above our inflatable raft on the American River. The little raft was wedged between 2 huge rocks, and we were instructed to climb out for a second to let it unstick. Michael gamely clambered up the side of one rock, and the raft released. It floated away, leaving him hanging. Amazingly, Michael did just as we told him to. He let go and dropped into the river below without even looking first. I thought at the time, and now, that this little boy trusted adults to tell him the truth. Now, when I've been asked to talk about the first time I was afraid, I realized that I too had a lucky and safe childhood. I wasn't afraid at 5 when I got my tonsils out and I had to spend the night in the hospital all by myself. Mummy said I would be okay, so okay. And she said I would get popsicles, and I did, so okay. I wasn't afraid when my mother threatened me with a spanking from my daddy when he got home. He just couldn't hit a little naked 4-year-old bum very hard with his big man hands, and I already knew that, so okay. I wasn't afraid as I looked out the back window of the family Buick I was waiting in as the car barreled towards its back end, my poor mother watching helplessly from the side of the road. I could tell that the vehicle was going to hit me, so I just got down in the wheel well like I'd seen on some TV show. I liked all the special attention I got that day, but I wasn't one bit afraid before or traumatized after. I wasn't afraid when I passed out on the way to visit our family farm for Easter, and I woke up in an oxygen tent. I was in the hospital for 10 days. My patient grandfather sitting in the corner, unable to make small talk with a little girl. Even 60 years later, I clearly remember the sound of thumb callus over thumb callus as he twiddled his thumbs after hour as he sat watching me. No iPads or iPods or even TVs in hospital rooms in those days. I guess I just watched him back. I think any type of fear must have started when my parents' relationship began to crumble and the fighting became a regular thing. Alcohol fueled much of the bedlam. My brother was 8 years older than me, and he was effectively the third parent and the only babysitter I ever knew. Then we moved away, leaving him behind to finish university. I remember being scared to death in the new town and the new house when my parents went to the movies one night. My sister and I were old enough to be left on our own, they thought, but they were gone so long. I was sure they were dead. They weren't, of course. It was just an extra long movie. I have yet to be able to watch Lawrence of Arabia, even now. I hear it's good. Maybe that was the first time I was really afraid. The next year, yet another new town and another new house. This time not a cozy little bungalow, but a grand old mansion, an echoey, stately home of a bygone era, skirting the bad part of town. They supposed I was old enough now to be left completely alone, even without my older sister. I wasn't. That year, as diplomats, my parents spent more evenings out than in. I spent too many hours and too many lonely evenings having locked myself in the upstairs bathroom because that one had a key. I knew nothing about how to protect myself against scary noises, but I knew I wasn't enough. So I would grab the only thing in the bathroom I thought would give me some little advantage. I gripped the long toilet bowl brush by the loopy part, hard, until the bristles marked my hand. I stood like a baseball player, never taking my eyes off the locked door until my parents got home. Somehow, I never could convince my parents, or I never could admit to my parents, or they never could hear me that I needed someone. It was the worst year of my life. It was just so huge. I was only 12 in grade 7, but I was aware of the news. I was aware that there were riots and protests all the time in this foreign country we had moved to. That people carried guns, even in the glove compartment of their cars. My father told me so. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful storyteller. The next one is Brandi.
Thank you, Victoria. Good morning. I'm Brandi Roth, and my story is Terrified and Near Death. I was raised to be stoic. Life is tough, it'll get harder, and doctors are near gods. Only once was I medically terrified. It's a big story, but you can relax because you see I'm alive and well. There was a men's dinner group of doctors. My lawyer husband did not really belong, but he got invited, enjoyed it, and famous divorce stories probably provided some levity. Somehow the topic arose that I took blood pressure medicine that was not helping. My doctor had called it essential hypertension. The doctor sitting across from Bruce made a comment. Really unlikely, but there could be an exceedingly rare tumor, says Josh, known to his patients as Fabulous Travulus. Hawkeye Bruce returns home and casually mentions the chatter. Maybe we should meet with Josh? We do. Life begins to spin in an unimaginable axis. Within 5 days, blood tests have begun to roll in, not looking good. They need to be sent for another opinion to a specialized lab. Interminable waiting. The results come back. Pheochromocytoma, rare tumor. Hard to imagine it today, but in 1988, some medical imaging was still in early stages. I was now in a medical race I knew nothing about, but I no longer move on blind faith and false information. I'm grappling with reports that all the while a silent killer had been growing undetected on top of my kidney. I suddenly massively understood multiple opinions. I required a surgeon who had performed many procedures like I was now facing. None, we were told, not even nationwide. There must be, well, one at Cedars-Sinai to interview. So rare, the surgeon says, I have only seen a few. I now heard a lot of noise. That is what the brain does in massive panic. I think he said they all survived. Terrifying fear is mounting, but I'm a survivor. I'm tough. Bruce is by my side, my family nearby, my friends nearby. We forge forward, everybody trying to help. This is now only 1 week and seeming like a lifetime. Squelching distrust, we meet the surgical team who describe more uncertainty. There is a lab error, but maybe there is a tumor. They are not sure. More tests, some brutal. Now I'm a pincushion. The beloved team of docs show steady resolve. An angiogram reconfirmed a tumor, but still no one knows what it is. Surgery is scheduled. Trust is ricocheting. This 6-hour surgery, so rare that docs had only studied it in medical school texts. Unbeknownst to me, there was a viewing room where doctors gather to watch procedures. I learned this later from meeting one at a cocktail party. I'm horrified to learn that he and maybe 20 others witnessed my body sawed open. My contribution to modern medicine. I was given 2 terrifying choices for reaching the tumor. No one would advise. We had to choose a surgical route. I have offered, but hardly anyone cares to see my removed rib. Unfortunately, I could not preserve the rare benign tumor. It had to be dissected. And no, it was not a pheochromocytoma. It was another type. Thanks to Dr. Joe Sugarman, his dinner group, my very alert husband, fabulous Trabulus, and Dr. Stephen Sachs, I'm alive today. Who knew male camaraderie would save my life? And you listeners, you are not likely to experience this horror. Laparoscopy has been developed. I'm grateful every day of my life that there were doctors who paid attention to all those rare medical tumor lectures. And I'm proud of that 2-foot-long scar and that rib in my survival file. It is now my very great joy to introduce you to Judy.
Thank you so much, Brandi. That was devastating. My name is Judy Donan, and my story is called Seymour. Going through the final stages of wedded bliss in 1976, I had attended several mind dynamic workshops in San Francisco, like EST and Actualizations. Forever curious to further delve into the repressed wounds of my unconscious mind, and moving back to LA, my girlfriend Paulette introduced me to a therapist who was leading a conscious raising weekend workshop. Sandstone Retreat in Topanga was clothing optional, which didn't affect me. Married for 16 years, I was well acquainted with the natural state of man and had no intention of being in total undress. Of course, once I arrived on a 90-degree day with everyone else in the nude, I did eventually remove my capris. But my white t-shirt was considerably long enough to reveal nothing. And I wasn't that prudish. The awareness training workshop at 9 a.m. began with an exercise to come up with a name as our alter ego. With eyes closed and a deep breath, Seymour appeared, like my dad's two friends. Weird, but I unconsciously wrote it down as see more. The perfect metaphor, an awakening to be more perceptive, more aware. Or did it mean to confront nudity, to examine closer? After lunch on the patio overlooking the ocean, we were welcomed to wander through the estate. Beds were everywhere. Those in use were rumbling with instant couples who couldn't resist temptation. I vehemently declined an invitation to join a total stranger in one of them. Maybe I was prudish. The one area I couldn't extract from my memory was a big windowless room, completely enveloped with a plush beige carpet covering the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and all the large platforms that were built in layers like huge steps. Every inch of carpet was camouflaged with liquid bodies in divergent positions of copulation, fornication, conjugation. It was boisterous, tempestuous, and rollicking, besides being steamy and unquestionably animalistic. On the verge of humorous, if not hysteria. I thought I was open-minded, but I remained a resolute voyeur. Dinner, including gigantic vats of spaghetti, salad, and garlic toast, was open to any additional guests who made a reservation for $20. Over 100 people arrived. Men, being men, were buck naked, but most of the women embellished their nudity with glorious adornments, spangled anklets and bracelets, lavish neck pieces, floral decorations cascading down from their hair, or colorful belts with ornaments descending from their hips, elaborate enough to generally conceal those delicate parts. But alone and excessively clothed, eating my overstuffed paper plate of food, like at a church dinner, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor when a guy in the buff was walking directly toward me. So my vantage point unintentionally slipped down from his face, focusing on his advancing privates, as he nonchalantly asked, "Aren't you Judy Donan from LA High?" And now it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Mary Ellen.
Thank you, Judy. I'm Mary Ellen, and my story is titled When I Was Afraid. It was Labor Day weekend in 1985. My husband, Tim, and I played tennis at the Berkeley Tennis Club in the morning. We came home, ate lunch, and Tim said his back was hurting and went upstairs to lie down. He could not get comfortable on the bed, so he laid down on the hardwood floor of our bedroom and took a nap. When he woke up, he was in terrific pain and could not get up from the floor. I called Kaiser Emergency, our healthcare provider, and stated what had happened. Kaiser sent an ambulance to our house, and it took Tim to the emergency room. In the emergency room, Tim was seen by Dr. Avram Gratch, who took an unwavering interest in his case. Tim was hospitalized, and Dr. Gratch ordered many tests done on him. Several days later, after a bone marrow biopsy, Tim was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is cancer of the bone marrow. At Dr. Gratch's request, I met him at Tim's room in the hospital. Dr. Gratch explained to us what multiple myeloma was and how he knew almost immediately when he saw the x-rays of Tim's back what Tim had. Of course, it was confirmed by the biopsy. Dr. Gratch also told us he had a patient with multiple myeloma who lived 19 years with it. When I left the hospital, I was terrified. How would I manage on my own? I, of course, remembered that Dr. Gratch's patient had lived 19 years, and maybe that would be Tim's outcome. However, when I read about multiple myeloma, I discovered that the average lifespan for a myeloma patient was 5 years. Then I really became scared. I decided then and there I would learn everything about how to care for Tim. I attended every medical appointment that he had. He had chemotherapy and radiation treatments and continued to go into work at his office until he became bedridden, which was 3 months before his death. Because Tim was never willing to admit he was going to die, nor would he forego curative treatment, Dr. Russell Staples, Tim's oncologist, could not recommend him for hospice care. However, Dr. Staples made certain that I had everything Kaiser could offer to make Tim comfortable and well cared for at home. He provided me with home care equipment, sent nurses to bathe him, and gave me a prescription for morphine to give him for pain relief. Once Tim became bedridden, life became very difficult. I don't know what I would have done without the wonderful support of Dr. Staples, from Kaiser, and especially from my family. During those 3 months, my sister-in-law, and my cousin came out to help me. Tim died on May 11th, 1990. I was so thankful that my cousin Roberta was with me at the time of his death. My cousin stayed a few more days, and then my sister Martha came to be with me. Martha and I planned Tim's celebration of life service, which was held at the nearby First Unitarian Church in Kensington 3 weeks later. I felt a tremendous sense of relief after the service. I was satisfied that I had done everything I could to help and care for Tim. It was so reassuring to me that I had a wonderful family I knew I could count on if I ever needed help in the future. But most of all, I was so grateful that I now felt I had the strength to manage my own life without fear. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to Lesley.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Hi, everyone. My name is Lesley Kyle, and my story is Water Music. Targets. A billowing sheer curtain, a country's flag, sometimes whipping crisply in a brisk norte, a tree's shadow dancing on the wall through a window, or a body of water flowing, fluid, constantly shifting from authentic to something else, something hidden. Water is my thing. I'm Capricorn, half goat, half fish. My family used to say I swam before I walked. Not entirely true, but close. Oceans, rivers, creeks, lakes, pools, sprinklers, hot springs, hot tubs, and my blessed bathtub. Our family home had only a bath until a remodel after we were grown brought in a shower. We took showers after playing sports at our athletic club, but bath time at home was essential. Still is. I had a friend years ago that was experiencing heavy-duty anxiety. His doctor suggested a short hot bath every night as a panacea. No pills prescribed, just hot water and time alone medicine. Some people say, ew, gross, you bathe in your own filth? Filth? How dirty are you? Do you work on a farm rolling in cow manure every day? Please. Many worry about wasting water or higher utility bills. What is my mental health worth? I figure it's probably way less expensive than deluxe psychiatry couches and a plethora of pharmaceuticals. I try not to fill up my tub, so parts of me are above the surface. I use warm, wet washcloths to cover some of the exposed skin. I have also perfected a splish splash technique to move water over my body to keep it warm. My hands like fish fins, water mammal paddle paws, or a mermaid's tail. It's a luxury, I know, and I appreciate it with all my being. My creativity soars while I renew body, mind, and spirit in the cleansing warmth of my safety spa. Not too long ago, while taking a bath, I came up with a haunting sketch for a new tune, which sounded striking to my ears. I worked a little on it in the tub and then quickly dried off and picked up my phone to record the melody on a voice memo. I have learned to grab and capture these ideas whenever they appear. I called this rough sketch Bath Tune. Not very original, but eventually with help, it became a song that I am proud of and have recorded and performed. We now call it Maid of the Mist. And now I get to introduce the final storyteller of our program. Please warmly welcome Richard.
Thank you, Lesley. My name is Richard Greenberg, and my story is My Pillow. 5:30 a.m., an almost cold, windy, early March day, still waiting for the sunrise in South Carolina, Fort Jackson. It was the first day of Army basic training. 150 of us, heads newly shaven to the skin, stumbling, straggling out of the barracks where we had spent our first night as future warriors. The drill instructors screaming like banshees, "Move, wake up, line up." The Berlin Wall was under construction, and we only had 3 months to absorb whatever the Army was going to throw at us. And then we would be heading to Germany to deter the new rising threat from the communist bloc. 4 platoons aligned in some strange, ever-shifting, squiggly geometric shape, soon to be squared up from constant practice into a perfect rectangle. And a trim older soldier, too old to be a DI, but with plenty of stripes and the division logo on his sleeves, stood militarily in front of us. And he was bellowing out my name. Private Greenberg, front and center. Holy shit, and what the F asterisk asterisk K? And now mockingly, where's Private Greenberg? As I elbowed my way out of the formation and jogged to his front and center. He did an about face and quietly said, "Follow me," which I did, to his little office adjacent to our lodgings. Last night, they had given us one last chance to communicate with the world outside. So I'd mailed a postcard to a friend. Turns out, dropping a postcard through the mail slot does not necessarily constitute a postcard actually being mailed, or at least not being mailed before they read it first. I had written, the sarcasm obvious to me, some fun facts about my Army experience to date, and the phrase, "first night and I'm already going crazy," just happened to be included in the chatty bits of conveyed information. After I finally convinced the master sergeant and my captain that I was not, in fact, too crazy to carry a rifle, I was sent back to my platoon. So the Army and I got off to an exciting start. Basic training. We sat in decrepit buildings, not good enough to be torn down, and watched instructional films, how to clean your rifle, how to prevent or treat venereal disease, and the like. I proved the theory that I could, in fact, sleep with my eyes open. We sat outside in rotting wooden bleachers, claimed from high school football fields that were upgrading their facilities. We sat for hours in those bleachers, in cold, windy, and constant downpours, as we learned the nuances of crossfire technique. It doesn't rain in the Army, it rains on the Army. I've never been in a real fist fight before, but the Army had toughened me up, and more, I felt like I could hold my own, or at least in my weight division. One night in the last month of basic, a fellow trainee, John Dobson, for some unreason, unbeknownst to me, appeared at the entrance to my sleeping space. 6'4" and built like an NFL linebacker, and known, not affectionately, as Mary. And boy, was he mad. "Where's my pillow?" he demanded. "Don't know, don't care, don't have it," I said, as my adrenaline rose to the occasion. More back and forth, same juvenile schoolyard Q's and A's, escalating tensions, DEFCON 4.5. He was looking past me, focusing on my cot. I assumed he thought my pillow was his pillow, but all Army pillows look alike. He took a step towards me. I sensed an attack was imminent, and instinctively, and without any thought of bodily harm, at least to me, I shoved him hard out of my space and followed him, closing the distance, still on autopilot, ready, maybe even eager to slug it out if it came to that. Fortunately for me, probably, a crowd, interest piqued by the noise, had gathered. They must have liked me, because a few of them got between us and whisked him down the hall and away. Peace was restored. Nothing like a good pillow fight, eh? Now I invite my fellow writers to zoom back in. And Debra, on behalf of our Stage Stories class, we want to thank you and tell you how appreciative we are for your positivity, enthusiasm, guidance, and encouragement. You have made us all much better writers.
Thank you, Richard, and the entire class. And thank you for making me cry, which I knew you would. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. It has been nothing but joy to spend my Tuesday mornings with you and to hear your stories and to get to know you. And I have a feeling you all will know each other way past this class, because that tends to happen with our classes.